Hi, I'm Janice Banther, and I want to welcome you to the Birth Behind Bars seminar. For over 21 years, I've been working with people who have been homeless or very much in need or too poor to really have childbirth classes and a doula. And I've really reached out to that part of the community in our area where I live. I've done people who live like I do, and like that, that's been a very small percentage. But for the last 14 years, I've had the privilege of working with inmates and designing programs just for pregnant inmates, and now in the last few years for parenting for all inmates, male and female. So we're going to be talking about what Birth Behind Bars has been doing, how you can pretty much start a birth behind bars, and doing an overview of the things that you can learn much more in the months to come. So I hope we can get started on this and we can find out a lot of information on this. One of the first questions people always ask me is, Janice, why in the world did it even enter your brain to start thinking about teaching pregnant inmates? Well, I get asked that a lot. And it happened about 16 years ago probably, and I was having lunch with a midwife friend of mine, and as I was getting into her car, she had her stethoscope and things in her passenger side of her car, and I said, so where are you going after? Are you going back to the office? She said, no, I'm going to the jail to do prenatals. And I said, why? Because it never entered my mind at that point in time that there was pregnant inmates. That was 16 years ago. And so it really got me thinking about it. It took me a while to really start processing it through my mind. And I asked some law enforcement people and people that work in different jails, do you have pregnant inmates? And the answer was always yes. And so I finally decided I was going to do something. So I contacted a jail, a county jail that's over an hour away, so it's a 2-hour trip every time we go, if they had pregnant inmates. And the answer was yes. And I said, do you have any programs for them or any classes or anything? And the answer was no. And I said, would you be interested in having some? And the answer was yes. And that's how it started. And we started teaching childbirth classes twice a month. And literally in my mind, that's all I thought it was going to be, was I was just going to be teaching childbirth classes twice a month. And that was it. I had no idea that in 14 years it would grow into what it's grown into now. I'm excited that it has, and I'm glad that it has. And I truly, truly enjoy working with the inmate population, and working with those pregnant women is just very dear to my heart. And obviously it's dear to your heart, or you think it will be dear to your heart, or else you wouldn't be listening to me right now. Since we started doing this, I've been working with people across the country, and I've been involved in starting some programs already around the country, besides answering emails from everywhere, even outside of our country. But the ones that I've been involved in starting have been the ones, a program in Vermont, a program in Brevard County, Pasco County, Atlanta, Georgia, and also in West Virginia. My goal is to see this in all 50 states and to see this everywhere, and I hope that that will eventually happen. Birth Behind Bars is a non-for-profit 501c3 organization, and we're run by a board of directors. Your story may be something like mine. Yours may be totally different about why all of a sudden you decide that you have this great interest in pregnant inmates. But whatever it is, it's taking you to this place, and hopefully it's taking you to a place where you want to learn more, and it's just that urge in you that you just know that you have to find out how to start this in your area or to become part of a program that's already been started. I don't know if you knew this or not, but there's approximately over 200,000 women in prison or jail right now in the United States. And that's the fastest growing population there is in jails and prisons are females. But what statistics show us is that between 6 to 10% of that population is pregnant. That means right now there are over 12,000 pregnant women in jail or prison. Yes, 12,000. That's an unbelievable number. And when we think about how many thousands and thousands of people that is, and just a small group of women are being helped right now with doulas and childbirth classes and programs that are out there, it's almost mind-blowing to think that there's that many people out there that need help, and that what we consider, what we call at Birth Behind Bars, women that live in the shadows of life. Because pregnant women just don't fall on somebody's radar in their brain. They don't even know they exist. Questions I get asked a lot was, well, how did they get pregnant? Well, they got pregnant before they were in jail or before they went to prison. So it was always, when they asked that question, it's like, well, how did they get pregnant? Also, just to say this, there might be times I might say jail or prison. I'm talking about both if I just say one word, and just to kind of alternate the two words together. There's a few things I want to go over that are important in getting started with a birth behind bars. The first thing, and I know a lot of you have already done this because I've been talking to you either with email or text or Facebook messaging, but you want to call your local jail and find out if there are female inmates, if they do house pregnant inmates. Find out when you call the jail, who would you talk to as far as finding out if you could start childbirth classes or parenting classes or doula services at that jail or prison. Now, if it's a jail, most of the time it's going to be a civilian, maybe a social worker, but probably a person who is head of the programs department. And it just depends on your jail. In prisons, it's usually a social worker, and many times it's the chaplain. A lot of the programs fall underneath the chaplain's division, and so that's who you might be talking to if you call for a prison. So you can ask them what kind of classes they already have, what do they have already in place for inmates that are pregnant. And then if you decided, if you've gone there with the thought that you would like to do this, say, is there something that you would like to start doing? And if the answer is yes, say, well, I would like to do this. And maybe we could find a place in the schedule where I could fit in. And you're thinking, well, of course you could fit in the schedule. They want you. I mean, hey, it's me teaching pregnant women about childbirth classes and about wanting to be having someone there as a doula with them. But you got to realize, in the jail, space is pretty a luxury thing. So you might have, like in every, they go by the alphabet, A, B, C, Alpha, Delta, Alpha, Bravo, Delta, Charlie, Echo. That's as far as I go in my jail right here. And I don't know what A, B, C, D, E, I don't know what F would be. But in each one of those areas, there's only one program room. And that program room is tightly scheduled. So for them to find a place for you to fit in, so let's say you go there twice a week, and it's better for them if you're the same, on every other Friday at 12:30, teaching childbirth classes. And they got to find that slot where you can fit in. And you think with all the time that there's available, you would think there would be spaces for programs. Well, it's not always that way. And the reason is because there's so many times for lockdown that they can't always have classes because everybody needs to be in lockdown so they can count the, sorry, I just checked my watch. I thought I better make sure I don't run over on this. I just moved the camera. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. So they got to make sure that, so you'd think with all that they would be able to do that, but no, that with lockdown, that's a lot of hours taken out, but they have to count all the prisoners and make sure everybody's accounted for and they know where they are. So when you do go, also make sure you bring with you any handouts that you would use, any visuals you would use, any DVDs you would use. They need to all be approved. And if they're DVDs, make sure they're DVDs that you can leave because they're not going to view them right then and there with you. You would be there for a couple of days probably. So make sure they're DVDs that you can leave with them and let them view and pick them back up a week later. So you want to make sure it's in your schedule, or else you could tell them you could bring them back, the DVDs, and bring them for them to view the next day or whatever it fits better in your schedule, because maybe you're using them the next day in your classes on the outside. So make sure you have all that stuff with you so they can approve it. In our experiences with birth behind bars, there's been 3 absolutes that will always remain the same, and probably for all of us. And the number one thing is you are there at the jail or the prison at the pleasure of the sheriff or whoever is the head of the jail, and you must submit to their authority completely. That's the number one important thing. I want to say it again because it is so important. You're there at the jail at the pleasure of the sheriff or the head of the jail, and you must submit to their authority completely. That's hard to do a lot of times, especially when you start doing the doula work, and maybe there's a lot of restrictions. Maybe you are in a state where shackling is still allowed, and you're wanting to complain about that. And we'll talk about that a lot more later on. But even things that you would like to bring in as gifts to the inmates, and they can't have gifts. That's considered contraband. And so you have to stay inside the rules they have, or else they can tell you to leave. I mean, at a moment's notice, and I have seen this before, they can just tell you goodbye. Thanks, but no thanks, no more. So you need to really abide by whatever they are saying in the authority that's over you. You are not there to be an outspoken advocate for the pregnant inmate. To the contrary, you have to work very hard and to find a way, whether it's childbirth classes or as a doula services, where you can do all the things you need to do while observing all the rules and the standards of the jail. And again, that's hard to do. There's times, obviously, when we're teaching in the jail, there is a rule of no contact, no physical contact with an inmate, and that's understood. Obviously, in doula work, that's different, and we're allowed to hold the mother and help her get into different positions and things like that. But if I was an outspoken advocate about different things, no matter what they are, and I'm causing that deputy more trouble than it's worth for them to try and transport me from point A to point B after I've gone through 8 locked doors, then they're going to talk to their supervisor saying, listen, I just don't have time to fool with this. And they could, again, tell you to leave. You must never communicate any information that you have with an inmate's family or relative, or a person they know. You must not get in contact with anybody of them, be a Facebook friend, anything like that. Confidentiality is of the utmost importance. Even our partners, our husbands or boyfriends, do not know the names of the inmates that we are working with, even if we're going to be a doula for them. They don't ask, and I don't even think we would tell if they did ask. So everything is kept very confidential as far as the names of the inmates that we're working with. And only the people who work in the areas with birth behind bars should be the ones that know the names of the people that are in childbirth classes or parenting classes or wherever you're doulaing, especially doulaing, because when they are taken to the hospital, they are now in an unsecured area. And it's not even told what hospital they're going to. So they have to know they can trust you. So when you're going out in an unsecured area, you're not telling the world on Facebook, hey, yay, I'm going to a jail birth, my first one, and I'm going to be at Banther Memorial Hospital. And not a good thing to do. You just don't do that. And we do have a Facebook page, Birth Behind Bars, and we do put on there after someone's had a baby, after they're back in jail, and they're not in the hospital anymore, they're secured back, and we'll say, so happy to have baby B that was born last week, birth story to follow, with a cute picture of a baby. We just put one up of 2 weeks ago. Cutest little girl, the biggest baby we've ever had, a jail birth. She was over 9 pounds, and just a cutie, such a sweet little girl. And I know you're asking, by the time you've seen all these rules, how can you possibly stay and do all these things that you're supposed to be doing? But you can. You learn how to work outside the box. And I think that as childbirth educators, and especially as doulas when we're at a birth, and there's no births that are ever the same, that we're used to working outside the box, thinking, okay, this mother is having this problem. Okay, what can I do? How can I help her with this back labor? She's not allowed to get out of the bed. They've got these rules. They won't let her do this. She's got constant monitoring. And you learn how to work around that as a doula on the outside. Well, same thing as working with an inmate. You learn how to help with positions in doulaing, or you learn how to teach better with if you work out better if you actually had a visual that was showing what you want to teach, but you can't bring that in because it wasn't approved. Well, you can take a picture of that and bring the picture in of whatever it is you're not allowed to bring in, and use that as an example of things. One thing that we have is we have a baby bottle, and it's full of cigarette butts. And everybody says that's the most disgusting thing in the world. Well, it is, but it does teach a good, important point to the inmates, the ones that get out, about smoking. We're in a no-smoke state in Florida, so they cannot smoke at all in jail. In prisons, they have places where they can go outside and smoke, and in certain areas, because it's a whole different layout in jails than it is in prisons. So we had this bottle, and we wanted to bring it into the jail to show and just leave on the table. And we did for a while. Then it became a questionable thing, and so we went and met with the lieutenant and the head of our programming, and the lieutenant and the sergeant, and he looked at it and goes, well, and he was full with it, and he said, could you super glue this lid on this bottle? I said, yeah. He said, okay, super glue the lid on the bottle, and yeah, bring it in. So we did. And about 2 months ago, we got a call from the jail saying, you can't bring that bottle in anymore. And we said, okay, that's fine. So we don't bring it in anymore. And you just learn a different way of teaching about not smoking, that whatever you put inside you goes to the baby. And you learn how to figure that out. There's the reasons that I feel that are very compelling that you would want to, or anyone who this is laid in their heart, to want to be able to reach out to the pregnant inmate population, is that this is very new to a lot of them. It doesn't even enter on their radar that, like a lot of us, that when we get pregnant and that stick turns pink or has a positive sign, we go and we call our partner, and then we go and we call our mother or our best friend, and then we go and make an appointment with the OBGYN, and then we go on Amazon.com and we order all the books that we think we should be reading, and we just load up on things. Well, it's not on their radar. A lot of times they don't even know they're pregnant till they get to jail because they've never thought about it. They're on drugs, and it's just not part of their thinking. And it's just not how they process things. So you're not going to teach people who are excited about learning. Now, it's not 100%. I want to tell you that's not 100%. There's a percentage there where, yes, they're excited about learning. But to teach them to be excited about learning, that's something you have to help them process in their head. This is something you want to learn about your baby, and how you can take care of your baby while it's inside you. Even in jail or when you get released on bail, you can, or when you get out of prison, you want to be doing these things now. So you want to help stress to them that why this is important. And that's why this is such an important process to have, is childbirth classes and parenting classes, and have doula services, because they would never do this on the outside, because it's not something they would think of. And this is something that you can start with them and helping them realize they are worth something, because most of them feel as if they aren't. I'm not worth anything. And to actually talk to them, and then what's most important, listen. And I have to admit, sometimes I have to really bite my tongue and but just stand there and look in her eyes, and don't just keep shaking my head, but just look in her eyes, and just let my eyes do the talking, that I'm listening to her. And she's telling me, she's taking me to a corner of the room to talk, and with her back towards the other inmates, and she's telling me that she's been sexually abused since she was 2 years old, and it went on until she was 15, and she doesn't know how she's going to handle birth. And she's telling me the stories of what happened to her, and stories that make you want to throw up. And you have to look and listen to her and give her full attention of what she's saying. And without being able to touch her or hug her, let your eyes do all of that caring work and just listen. Because they really don't have anybody to listen to them. The deputies are very busy doing their job. That's protecting the inmates from each other and protecting you when you come in there to teach. And the deputies are protecting each other, each deputy's working with the inmates. They are looking for a lot of things at one time. Their job is very busy and huge, and a lot of times we take it for granted as we come in for a program. Well, of course they want to let me through the door. Why are they waiting to let me through the door? I buzzed 5 minutes ago. Well, because they're looking at a lot of monitors, and maybe something's going on one of those monitors. It's got to have all their attention because something is happening, and they're trying to call all deputies to this one area where there's something going down. I think also it's so very important, and what we know in the last few years especially that's come out, is letting them know how important bonding is with their baby. And not just the bonding they have for the 48 or 72 hours at the hospital, whether it's a vaginal birth or a cesarean, but the bonding that starts in utero. And I have a book here that was written not too long ago that's an example of that. There's a lot of articles out there. There's a few books out there about this, but there's a lot of articles. And this is one of the books. It's called The Greatest Pregnancy Ever. And this book was written by Laura Wilson and Tracy Wilson Peters. Now, I believe the only place you can now get this book is through the Kappa website. And I know there's no words below. If you have any questions, you can email me about any of these things. But you can get it from the Kappa website. They've also written a new book that goes along with this called Attachment Parenting, and you can get that one from Amazon.com. Hopefully, while you're teaching your childbirth classes and teaching the parenting classes, that during this you're able to help them have more self-worth and be able to break that cycle of violence, of abuse, and of drug abuse and human trafficking. And I know when I said human trafficking, I'm thinking, human trafficking? We have a lot of girls who say, I can't tell you how glad I am I'm in jail. I feel so safe here. And it didn't make a lot of sense at first until I went to a program on human trafficking about 6 months ago. And no girl decides at the age of 8, I can't wait to grow up to be a prostitute. Something happened in their life. Someone led them to that. Usually, someone led them to that. And that's not just called pimping. That's also called human trafficking, when they have a hold on them and they can't let go. I am sad to say that Florida is one of the larger states for human trafficking. I'm even more sad to say that the county I live in is one of the highest human trafficking counties in Florida. It is amazing, and it's sickening. It can involve children, it can involve adults, and it's very hard to even imagine. Many of the inmates have other children, and so that are pregnant. And so like the intake form that we have, it's very simple, and it says, because you take for granted that most of them can't read very well or read at all. And you should really take that for granted for people on the outside too. Don't take for granted that everybody on the outside can read. But we had this one girl, I remember, and on the intake form it says your name, date you were arrested, the date you think you're going to get out. Of course, they're going to get out next week. Every single one's going to get out next week. And how many children they have, and their names and ages, and do they have parental rights to those children. So it lets you know if the baby inside them, will they have the ability of saying where that baby can go, or because they've lost parental rights, will this child go automatically in the foster care system? So that question tells a lot. But we had this one girl one time, I will never forget this, long kind of time ago this happened. It's happened since then too, but the first time it happened, and she's writing her name and everything, and the question says, please list your children's names and their ages. And so she has the pen in her hand and she goes, and she writes a name down, pauses. Then she writes an age. Again, she thinks. All 6 kids she did that for. It took her forever to write down the names of her children and their ages. She couldn't remember. Mind-blowing. I know that's just mind-blowing that could actually happen, but it does. So what you want to do is be able to help them make the best choice possible of who is going to parent the baby inside them. And don't just say who's going to have custody, but using the word parent. Let that word parent really get across to them, whether it's a foster parent or adoption, or maybe they are allowed to give the child, let somebody else in their family parent the child legally. But they will, if they're in your class long enough, you'll be part of that process that they'll be talking to you about. And you want to be able to guide them without telling them what to do or putting your own personal biases in there of what they should do, which is hard to do. But we've had a large adoption rate. The ones who were considered for foster care, or the girls they weren't sure who the father was, and they just felt like they couldn't parent. Now it broke their heart, and it was hard the day they signed those papers at the hospital. But they decided on adoption, and we were able to connect them with an adoption agency that we use just for jail, where the person can come out the very next day and talk to the mom, only with her permission. I would never just send somebody out. But if they ask me, I said, well, when they ask about adoption, I said, well, I can have you talk to somebody who knows more about adoption options than I do. Would you like for me to have her come out and talk to you? And if the answer is yes, as it doesn't mean you're signing any papers, it just means you're finding out your options. And if the answer is yes, then I will make that contact for them through the jail, and they can make that decision on their own. And sometimes they say no after talking to her, and sometimes they say yes, and they're excited, and they pick out the family themselves, and they're very excited about it. So that's something that's very important. And the next step that's very important is to help that inmate who is still incarcerated, who gives birth, with postpartum depression. We've only had one case where it was severe postpartum depression. She turned from one person who was so easy to get along with, happy-natured, good-natured, and after her baby was born, you would think it was a different person that came back to the jail. She was always on lockdown for getting in trouble with other inmates, with the deputies, breaking the rules. It was sad. That was the only one case in 14 years that we saw it that way. And many times the jail would call us and say, remember the inmate that had just gave birth, so-and-so? And they always use the last names of inmates. And we use the first names for inmates. And so we have, I think, yes, And he says, she's really having a difficult time. Could you please come out and talk to her? Now, obviously, they have social workers and mental health care workers that come out and talk to the inmates. But if somehow maybe the inmate has mentioned us, or they think that we might be able to help them open the door to seeing a mental health counselor, then they call us, and then we just don't get involved. We just listen to the inmate and find out and say, I think what you might need to do is just talk to somebody that has more education than what I do. And you might want to ask, just fill out a form that you want to see a mental health counselor, and maybe a doctor, and maybe he might give you some medication and have talk therapy at the same time. So you might be very involved in that. Because she's going through a grieving process when she leaves the hospital, whether she's giving the baby for adoption, surrendering the baby for adoption, or if she is going back to jail and the baby's going to a family member, she won't get to touch that baby till she gets out of jail, or if she's sent to prison after prison for a while. Because in jail, it's video conferencing they do now, where they're in the visitors are in a video room, a room with phones with video cameras, and they talk to the inmates. And so they can see their baby if somebody brings their baby, but they can't touch them. And it's kind of hard to communicate over a video camera and a phone to a baby. It's mommy, I love you. So be able to really help them through that process, because they're going to really be grieving a lot. The most important gatekeeper that you're going to face in your work is going to be the head of programs, who's going to approve everything that you do, all the classes that you teach and everything, and also the head of nursing, and then the nurses and the techs that are on the medical floor. You become very close to them, and because as you go to the medical floor to ask them and say, I'm concerned about so-and-so, when she had her last prenatal visit, what did the doctor say about how was her blood pressure? Do you know by chance what her blood pressure was? Did it write it down? And they'll talk to me and they'll say, she's not made any of her prenatal appointments. I go, what do you mean? I'll never forget the first time they told me that. I says, what do you mean she's not made her prenatal appointments? Like you didn't call her and tell her it's time to come downstairs and have a deputy get her? She refused them. She refused all of her appointments. She had no desire to go see the OBGYN to find out how her baby's doing, how much weight she's gained, how things are going. So, and they have a right to do that. They have a right to refuse going to classes. They have a right to refuse any programs that they're offered to them, and they have the right to refuse going to see the doctor if they don't want to go. So you talking to them is very important. And they're going to be sizing you up as you're talking to them to see what kind of a person you are. And what they're looking for is they're looking to see, can this person really be trusted? Can we trust them with the information that we're giving them that's only going to go between them and the people they work with and no further? And they're not going to push the envelope to keep on things going. It may be that one of the things they're going to ask is, are you certified? And what is your expertise? You learn so much when you start working in jails and prisons. Jails can be privately owned, county owned, nonprofit. Same thing for prisons. They can be federally owned, state owned, nonprofit. And also there's different accreditations that jails and prisons can have. When I first started this off 14 years ago, there was not anything that says you had to be certified. You're a dual and child educator. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So it was about, 4 years into it. I really can't remember. They said, we now need to have papers from everybody showing that you're certified in your area. And since that point on, we have always had certified people. So you need to go looking into this, that you probably need to be certified in the area you're in. So as a child educator or as a doula, you need to be certified. You want to make sure you're somebody that, like I said, is not going to push the envelope. We almost lost our program because of somebody. She had gone, I think there's 8 doors that slammed behind us really hard. And she had gotten down, she got held up at one of the doors. I think they lost a lockdown count or something had happened downstairs, and so they stopped any programs or any civilians from walking back and forth. And by the time she got downstairs to where the inmates are and the classroom is, she said, I'm here to teach the pregnant inmates. Well, and the deputy looked at his watch. He says, well, I'm sorry, it's just too late to get them. And so it was like 30 minutes of class time left. Well, it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for them to get the inmates, put it in the computer that these inmates are being moved from point A to point B, get them out, body search them, and then get them all down to the programs room, me to the programs room, unlock the door, get us all in there, unlock the storage room door for us to get our everything we need. So that means there'd be less than 15 minutes of time before they had to come back and get them. She argued with the deputy that, no, I have to see this one inmate. She is due really soon, and I have to see her now. I've got to see her. And she got very agitated with the deputy. And we came very close to losing our program. I got a phone call the next day. I got a phone call the next day. And from the head of programs, and they said, this kid is not acceptable. I said, I am very sorry. I am very sorry. And told them, I would look into this, and this would not happen again. And that person was no longer allowed to go back to being in the program. Again, we came very close to losing the program altogether. Twice we've come very close because of situations that have happened, and with someone in our program where one of them was just a complete mistake. And the other one was where she was just pushing the envelope with the deputy. Excuse me. So let's assume you've gone through all that, done everything like that, and you get to go through it, you get to teach your classes. Everybody's going to be different. And, I don't have it here. Darn it, my manual. I thought I had it here. I've written a manual for inmates that they can use for the childbirth classes. And it's written on their level with English words they could understand better. And how I came about it was I was using pretty much the same manual I've written for people on the outside. I just tore out a few pages that weren't really needed, and this is it. And I got there really early one day for classes, and I thought, I'm early. I need to go through the book. I need to change this book anyway. So I'm going through it. I'm thinking, I can't believe this page is in here. I can't believe I left this page in here. This is ridiculous. How would they ever understand this? And I have a hard time understanding this page sometimes, and I realized then this needs to be rewritten. And it was like a birth. I think it took me 9 months to write it, and for it to get type set up and ready to print. And then have approved before we printed it, because you surely don't want to have 50 copies made of a book and then find out, no, we don't approve this from the jail. So once we had it all ready, then we sent it to the jail and we asked them, do you approve this? And they said yes, which we were very thankful for. So in using that book, we teach a lot of classes. A lot of times, and it depends on definitely what jail or prison you're with, you may be teaching twice a month to a group. And if you're working with a social worker, they may have you come in and work one-on-one with some of the inmates. I know that's true in a prison in West Virginia. They're allowed to work one-on-one with the girls and spend some time. We've never been allowed to do that in two of the jails that we've worked in close in this our area. And the things that we talk about and that we want to make sure that they really hit on is that drinking, how important it is to drink as much as possible, because they are almost always dehydrated. And of course, it looks like labor. So of course, it's a dry run to the hospital, get an IV, and they come back. So we really stress about drinking. And we have a little brochure we give them that has glasses of water, has 7 glasses. And there's 10 ice cubes in each glass, because the cup that they drink out of is a 6-ounce cup, not an 8-ounce cup. That's to the very, very rim. So if they would drink 6 of those glasses a day, it's still, 10, if they would drink 8 of those glasses a day, that still would not be 8 ounces each, and to what they say is how much, the least amount we should be drinking water when we're pregnant. Well, they can't stand the water. They say, it tastes lousy, and the water in Florida does taste lousy. It tastes lousy, it's warm, it's not good. So because their cups are small, we added extra ice cubes in there for them to check off, because they need to drink more than just 8 glasses of water. They need to drink at least 10 glasses of water to get their ounces of water they needed to have in them each day. We talk about fetal kick count, very important, since most of these are very high risk. They didn't realize they were pregnant until later in their pregnancy, or else they may be on the methadone program and they may be downstairs in medical and the entire time they're in jail, because if you're on the methadone program, you cannot be in general population. So the fetal kick count is very important, and to make sure you explain that really clear. Teaching babies to sleep on their backs. We talk about what happens in labor and delivery. We have videos for that. We talk about postpartum, and we talk about postpartum depression, that this could happen and how we can keep from that. And we take the ones that are really due, like now, aside, and someone else teaches them privately in the room. And you think, how can you teach in the same room? Isn't that confusing? It's very confusing for us because we're not used to it. They're used to it. Most of the rooms are just, a cement floor, cinder block walls, and so everything's hollow. It's just, it is irritating to teach in there. But you got to realize it's normal for them. So they don't see anything different about that. They're used to hearing it like that. So they're used to hearing two conversations in a room and listening to this conversation and not paying attention to this. And we're talking lower because it's involving postpartum depression, or it's involving something that involves just that one inmate. So we're not talking really loud, and we're just with them. So if we have someone who's getting ready to have their baby, we pull them aside and we talk about their birth plan. We talk about what's important to them for their birth. Then we talk about postpartum. We talk about the bonding with the baby and things that we want to really look for doing, and not just spring this on them after the baby's born. And then about what's your goals, or what do we plan on doing when we get back to jail? What can we do to make this easier? Because it's going to be tough, and we know that's going to be tough for you. It's so easy, and they look at us this way. You get to walk out the door. You finish with us. Yeah, you come and you smile and you teach us, and then you get to walk out the door. And we're constantly aware of that that's probably what they might be thinking about us. Not all of them. And then we have some girls who, they literally just thank us profusely each time. One time we got a card from somebody. She was released out of jail into not a halfway house, but it was a program she got to go to, not to keep with her baby, but I think it was a drug program that she was wanting to get in, and she was finally room. And in a homemade envelope that she had taken construction paper and taped on the side to hold another piece of construction paper, she folded in half. In pencil, she wrote, "I don't remember your names, but I'll never forget what you did for me." And she had, I don't know how she got her address. She got it, maybe she looked at I guess in the phone book. I have no idea how she got our address, but she mailed it to us. But I can't remember your names, but I'll never forget what you did for me. So there's some women that you will be part of their lives for the rest of their lives. They will never forget you and what you did for them in teaching them, and if you were a doula for them, how you were with them and you stayed with them. There's a girl that always touched my heart greatly. She was a planned C-section, and when she gave birth, she cried during the birth, and then when we got back to her room, she was holding her baby, and she was very quiet. Every time she talked, if I asked her a question like, "Would you like some more pillows under your head?" or anything like that, like you normally ask anybody, "Yes, thank you, please. Yes, ma'am." Or else, "Yes, Miss Janice," because the female deputies, a lot of times they call them by Miss name instead of deputy, whatever the last name is. And I would tell them, "You don't have to call me Miss, just call me Janice. It's okay." And if they kept saying it, I didn't keep correcting them. That's what they're used to. It's ingrained in them. So I didn't want to keep correcting them. But I said, "You can call me whatever you want. It's okay." But she would just whisper everything like this. And as she fed her baby, it was just touching. And now her finger would just go across that little boy's face. And, we do this a lot after we have a baby. And we see pictures we take of people who just had a baby and they rub their baby's face like this, or they're doing this. And when you see an inmate do that, different things are going through their head when they're doing that. And it really touches your heart because they know they're sinking in every bit they can and just digging it in their memory about their baby, because that baby's not going to be in their arms in 2 days. And to watch them, if you're with them when they leave to go back to the jail and they give that last kiss to the baby, that last look, that last hold, that last kiss, it just, you have to work hard not to cry because it is hard. And that you walk them out to the squad car and tell them goodbye and that you'll see them the next day. And you go out to jail and check on them postpartum. Okay, got through that. So sometimes when I talk about the personal stories, it really gets to your heart. Again, we talk about a birth plan with them and making sure they realize they still can plan a birth how they want, even though they are an inmate. They still can have the birth they want. How to get the baby in the right position, and we give certificates for everything. That's one thing that's not contraband, and they love certificates. And they take these certificates to court with them when they go to court. And we heard later, well, not later, but many times we've heard from some of the inmates saying, the judge looked at my certificates and they were really surprised how many classes I went to. So every class they come to, we give them a certificate. We give them a certificate if they've read their book from cover to cover. We give them a certificate if they did their exercising every day. We give them a certificate if they've read a book from the library. We've had probably over, close to 800 books donated to that library, all on childbirth and childbirth names. They love the childbirth names books. And books that they could easily read and understand and like. And so we always had on there, did you check out a book from the library this week? Did you keep track of your food and your water intake? And they bring the papers back to us for us to see. Now, we know most of the time on a lot of these things, and did you do your fetal kick count if they're past 28 weeks? That on a lot of these things, they're not telling us the truth. They didn't read it all the way through. If they had, they would know the answers to some of the questions that we ask later on. So, but we don't question them if they tell us they have read the book or they have done their exercising or whatever it is that they wrote. We ask them, we give them a certificate, and it says, this says that place we write their name, took how many hours the class is, and our childbirth class is just 1 hour long, because it's just about as long as their bladders can last before they have to go to the bathroom again. There's no bathroom in the program's room. So those things mean a lot, and it says they attended a 1 hour childbirth class, or if it was parenting, a 2 hour parenting class, and we sign it and put our names on it, and it just means a lot to them, and they keep them. And we had someone call us afterwards when they got out of jail, and they found our phone number, and they called. They said, I still have all my certificates from when I was in jail. It means a lot to them. It shows that they really worked hard, and they tried hard, and they were working hard to keep doing things. With doulas, in the doula part, we stay in contact with the medical staff. They're the ones that contact us when an inmate goes into labor and is taken to the hospital, or if she's scheduled for an induction or cesarean. The mother does not know the date of the induction or cesarean, and the reason is that's cruel. The reason is because if she could tell somebody, I will be en route to the hospital on a certain day, because I'm supposed to give birth that day. And it has happened before years ago, where they did let an inmate tell the family or whoever that they were going to the hospital for something. And one time that somebody did ambush the deputy on the way there, shot the deputy, and the inmate escaped. So for every rule they have, there really, really, really is a reason. Sometimes we don't understand the reasons, we don't like the reasons, but there's a reason for that rule. We spend a lot of the time also in the classes, as a doula, I'm sorry, back to being a doula, we're there the whole time they're in labor, and then instead of just about 1 hour or 1.5 hours, we usually spend postpartum on the outside with the client. Excuse me. And for jail, we spend about 5 hours that day, for the day they gave birth, and then we're there the next day for about 5 hours, and then if they're there another day, we're there for 5 hours. We're there until they go back to the to the jail. We stay with them, and so it's usually about 4 or 5 hours a day. And if it can't be the same doula, but that was with her the day that she gave birth, then it's another doula that she has met before. We try not to ever be a doula where she's a doula she's not met before, but one that she's familiar with. We also talk a lot about how to parent from prison, and this is something that we just started in the last few years, how important it is to parent from prison. And we also have books in the libraries, and we encourage them to get them. So if they have toddlers or preschoolers, and we have developmental books about toddlers from preschoolers and what kind of things they should be doing as a toddler or a newborn from 0 to 12 months, or as a toddler, as a preschooler, what should they be learning by now? So that way they can talk to the caregiver and say, how is she doing with her numbers? Has she learned her ABCs? Is she sitting up yet? How is she doing with crawling? Is she able to follow things with her eyes back and forth? Things that they can really feel like they're involved in with their parenting. We also talk about the goals they can obtain while incarcerated, not just goals they should obtain as soon as they get out of jail, but what goals can they do now by going to parenting classes, by attending AA or NA, or getting their GED, or other parenting classes that they have at the jail that does not involve a class time, but it's paperwork that they fill out, like a booklet that they take, and they do a test at the end of each chapter, and they get a certificate from the jail for that. And they enjoy those too. And they also teach them, talk to them about the goals that they want to have the very first day they're out of jail, the second day out of jail, the third day out of jail. And that might be to find where NA or AA is in their area, what time of day it meets. Maybe pick three, tell them to get, if it's A or NA, either one, find 3 places at 3 different times. So just in case you get caught up and you can't make it at 10 o'clock at the city hall place for an AA meeting, find out, if there's also a class at 2:30 that meets somewhere else close by that you can walk or take the bus to. So if you keep saying that to them and they have a place to write the goals down, then that's very important. Something we do, and I can show you this on my notes, is that I don't have my book here, my manual. One thing that we do is that, like here you see my words here, this is like what I'm telling you right now. But if this was our manual, this would have all their information here, all the stuff that we're teaching them, but we only have printing on one side, the other page is blank. If they have no money in their commissary, then they are considered indigent and they get 2 pieces of paper, 2 envelopes, and a pencil. If they would like to buy paper, they buy it from the commissary. If they could buy envelopes, they can buy it from the commissary. So they, to have paper to write, to journal on, or to take notes on, that's a high privilege of things to write things down on. So you want to make sure that you're giving them places to write things on in their book, empty spaces to journal, or to write down goals, or a homework that you might be giving a certain inmate that they need to do to help with parenting their children on the outside, or whatever it is that you're working with them on. We started teaching parenting classes, I can tell you probably exactly, since 2009. We started adding parenting classes. And the reason is because we had an inmate that was pregnant with twins, and she was just at the jail. She'd been sentenced, and she was just waiting to go to the prison. But she was due any time. She made it literally to 40 weeks. And she wanted to give the baby to her boyfriend. Her boyfriend did not have a job. He did not have a place to live. He didn't have a driver's license and didn't have a car. Not exactly a very stable person right there with twins. I mean, you know how hard it is with one. Can you imagine 2? And no place to live. But she was determined to do that. Well, she got sent to the prison, and the day she got to the prison, she gave birth. And this is time some people fall through cracks, is when things happen quickly. So she had the babies the day she got to prison. So there was not a time, somehow doing the background checks and things, it somehow did not get done. So he got the twins. They were born in October, and in December, close to Christmas, this cute little girl, he shook her so hard and then threw her against the wall, and she died. Her sister's alive. He didn't hurt the other twin, but this one is dead. We found out, and we didn't find out until months later, we mourned terribly. And I kept trying to find out where she was buried. I knew we needed to bring closure for us as doulas and child educators who had worked with her for so long, and thought we were going to be seeing the twins. We didn't think she'd be taken to prison that soon. But she was cremated, so there was no place to do that. So I really thought about it, and I thought, probably the best thing we can do is start teaching about shaken baby syndrome and what it can cause. And so we got the information. We all got trained in it. I got the dolls that you teach with shaken baby, where it shows half the brain, and you can see it shake back and forth. And we started teaching all the female inmates. You have to be pregnant, all the female inmates. And we were teaching for about 3 months. And we got back down after class one day. The woman at the desk where you register, she said, programs wants to see you. She wants you to come and see your office. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I'm always thinking I did something wrong. What did I do wrong? So we go into her room, and she says, we really like these classes you're teaching, the parenting classes, and they're good. but we think you should be teaching them to the men too. And my body language said it all. I am in her office. I'm perfectly safe. And I take 2 steps backwards in her office. And I said, we'll have to check with you on that, get back to you on that, and check with our husbands and make sure it's okay. I thought, our husbands will all say no, our partners will. So I'm no worry about that. It's not going to happen. All of them said yes. So, and actually, we really are safer with the guys than we are with the girls sometimes. It's hard to believe, but it's true. So we started teaching the men, and it's honestly been a very good thing, and I'm glad we've done it. And only twice have we had a problem with male inmates where we had to have them removed because of extremely inappropriate behavior. And there have been times we've had to say, I'm sorry. Well, we've tried to stop saying the word I'm sorry with this because it is a rule. The rule is you have to stand over on that side of the table. I'm on this side. That's part of the rules. And they go, yeah, those rules. I said, well, the rules are there because they're supposed to be there. So leave it like that and keep on teaching. So we taught shaken baby syndrome every single time we went, if there was even just one person new in the class. And then we taught other classes too. And that's where also we talked about parenting from jail and also about reaching their goals. We also talked a lot about sexual abuse in the childbirth classes because you can pretty much say almost every single one of those female inmates that are pregnant have been sexually abused, or they're pregnant from this rape. They're pregnant from a rape, yes. And using this book that Penny Simkin wrote, When Survivors Give Birth, there's some other great books that have been written since then. You can also take a course with this book. I would encourage you to go to Penny Simkin's website, and all you have to do is just Google Penny Simkin. And Simkin is spelled S-I-M-K-I-N, S-I-M-K-I-N, and she wrote this with Phyllis Klaus. Phyllis is a really dear, dear lady, too. She's a psychotherapist, and they did a great job of writing this book and have helped thousands and thousands of women who've been abused, and there's parts of childbirth that are just very difficult for them. They've really worked out well with them. We teach them how to bathe the baby, how not to just leave a baby alone, how to protect a baby, infant CPR. We teach them healthy meals for toddlers, healthy meals as they're learning how to eat, and how to discipline a toddler. And we have these certificates that one is for shaken baby syndrome and one is for the parenting classes that we teach. The shaken baby syndrome shows I will never hurt. It has a place to list all the children's names. I will never hurt these children. And you sign it. And they got to where they asked, could I have another copy of that and send it to my baby daddy? And we said, yeah, sure. So we were making them out of cardstock, and we stopped and made them out of regular bond paper so that way they could mail it easier to their significant other or their husband, and that way they could have it. And the guys liked it too. The guys liked it, and they always want an extra copy to send to the person who was the mother of their children, or wherever their children were. The other one about positive parenting was about how they would not talk bad or talk down, hurt, embarrass a child, never spank a child. And they would sign that too, and they always wanted copies of that. It was amazing. We had this one girl that was in one jail, and she was at a jail, and she's pregnant, and she's talking and telling us things, and she says, well, the baby daddy, he's in jail too. Oh, okay. And they told us what jail he was in. I'm going, okay. Well, we happen to teach at that jail too. And so we went to class. It was the next week. We went to the next jail. And she gave us his name. And so we always, at the beginning, say, tell us your first name and how many children you have. And he said, told us his name. He said, I don't have a baby yet, but my girlfriend's pregnant, and she's in jail too. And so we put everything together and realized we have a family here we're making. And it was so funny because we were talking about how to start parenting now, even in utero, how he could do that, and how people can just draw pictures for babies and little children to see. And so the next time we go and teach childbirth classes and we're with her, she says, you won't believe what my boyfriend sent me. Really? What did he send to you? He sent me the most beautiful letter for me to read to my baby. Really? That was so sweet. Never telling her we told him to do that. Never telling her we met him, because that's giving information back and forth. And it was so funny during the months that we were teaching both of them. And the other person would say, oh, she's doing good, and she's this, and this, and the doctor says she's doing good, and then he'd go back to her and says, oh, he sent me some more stuff for the baby to read to the baby, and it was like we've made a family. Then she was allowed to leave the jail and go into a program for methadone and still be pregnant and then have your baby there too. So she was able to do that, and we never found out what happened after that, but we knew we had helped form the bonds of a family in that process. I mean, how many times is that ever going to happen? It's amazing. We also teach Happiest Baby on the Block. We also teach Hug Your Baby, and if you've never heard of that program, I really encourage you to Google that. Hug, H-U-G, Your Baby. And it's written by Jan Tedder. She's an RN and a doula, and it's a fantastic program at knowing just how to really teach and how much that baby knows, and to show the parents. It's very, very good. I would encourage you to at least even take part one, but really if you could take all the parts so you could teach this to your clients on the outside, and when you start teaching in jail, that you can start teaching this in jail. I want to watch out on my time here. I'm doing fair on my time. There are 18 states right now that they have now made it where it's not legal to shackle a pregnant inmate. And I feel like there's 19. I feel like I'm missing one. I may not be, maybe it's just in my head, but these are the states. So if you're in a state, you know that you're in a state that shackling is not involved on a pregnant woman. And that is, and I'll say these slowly so you will be able to catch it. Arizona, California, Colorado, Delaware, Florida, Hawaii, Idaho, Illinois, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, New Mexico, Nevada, New York, Rhode Island, Texas, Vermont, Washington, West Virginia. I think it's Massachusetts is what I'm missing. I'm pretty sure it's Massachusetts or Wisconsin. I'm missing a state. Anyway, the other states still allow shackling. So one of the things that we're going to do in the future is teach you how to do labor positions with shackles. And I know that sounds terrible, but you got to do what you got to do. And it's amazing how just your presence can change things. Long before it was state law, it just became state law 2 years ago. Long before it was state law in Florida to not shackle pregnant inmates. They stopped shackling pregnant inmates at the jail where we started the doula work here. And I really do believe it was just our presence. The deputies going back and saying, you know, that woman there that's with them, the doula, it's amazing what they do with these girls. And I think just our presence being there and not making it a big deal that they still had them shackled, and maybe at a certain point saying, would you mind taking the shackle off her arm? And honestly, I was saying it not to help her as much. It was really digging into me because I was holding it in a certain way, so that way it wasn't, she had room to move on the ball, and it wasn't hurting her or her arm. I forget now it was hurting her arm, or I didn't want to hurt her. So I had a firm hold on this side, so it was really digging into my hand. And so I asked the deputy, I said, would it be possible, if it's not, I fully understand, but would it be possible if you could undo this shackle because it's really hurting my hand? And she could see what I was doing. She was sitting there watching me, and she did. And it wasn't long after that they stopped shackling the girls altogether that were pregnant, long before it was Florida law. And you might find that as you start a program or you're in a program, that they will stop shackling long before it's state law. So that is something to be aware of. One of the things that we want to do, and we've advertised this since we did the original seminar that we had, we're live in talking to many of the people who are starting their programs and getting involved already. We are starting a certification program with Birth Behind Bars. Now, in order to be part of the certification program, which we're so excited to announce this, is that you need to be a certified doula or childbirth educator in order to be in this, because we're not going to be going all over the process. To become a certified labor doula, for some organizations, it's at least 18 hours. For some organizations, it's 25 hours. To become a childbirth educator, for some organizations it's 25 hours, for some organizations it's longer, of CEU hours of teaching. So you need to be already have that information to be a teacher or a doula, and also have information on breastfeeding before you can be certified to teach women in jail. I hope you understand that. And if you don't, honestly, email me about anything like this. It's going to be $275. It's an online course. You will get, along with this, your course material. You'll have a manual, your certification packet. You know how when you were certified as a doula or a postpartum doula or childbirth educator, when you finished all of your prerequisites, you bought your certification packet and then you paid a certification fee to send it in? This is all included. There's no extra thing at the very end after this is over. So it's $275, and you get the course material, your certification packet, the certification review, and you get to register with our online official site that you are part of the certified doula or child educator with Birth Behind Bars. In other words, you've been trained to work with inmates. So, which means that it gives you a program, and others are referred to verify your certification. They can contact us. They can go online. We can even go on the website and see the names of the people who are certified. Again, we are a 501c3 organization, and I know something that you're asking. Let me finish this, then I'll go back to that. I wish I had somebody next to me to say, mention the word grants to me. This is an education proponent that we will keep up on and keep record of your certification. So if anybody calls us and asks, do you know, we're considering having Janice Banther as far as working in our prison, and she says that she's certified. She's a certified doula with the organization, but she says she's also certified with you, that she's has information on how to work with inmates, and we're just verifying that. We have that on file. We will have that on file that we can tell them. Also, it gives you permission to use a logo that we have, that if you look on our Facebook page, it's the one in the small little box. It says Birth Behind Bars, and it has a pair of handcuffs and a pair of booties on it. The official Birth Behind Bars logo is all in orange and black, and it's all the way across on our Facebook page, and it's also all the way across on our website. The website is birthingwithbars.com. birthingwithbars.com. So I am hoping that many of you will look into this and want to be certified. It's not you going anywhere. You will have the materials sent to you. You will listen to the classes online. They're going to be about 5 hours altogether. You will have homework to do in between the classes. You will have required work that you need to do besides watching the online seminars to be certified. And then you will be sending all the information into us, and then we will certify you through that. You can find some of this information now already on our website. We just put it up last night. So you can see that about the certification process. So if you have any questions on that, again, we're going to be talking about this a lot. If you are not, you should have, if you're getting this video, you should have gotten an email from us, an e-newsletter from Birth Behind Bars, which means you did read it, and you will probably send us a link, that you send us an information that you want to take this seminar, and you missed it because life happens and you just couldn't get to a computer in time. So we have a private Birth Behind Bars professional page. This page is only for people who are now or are going to start a program. If you want to be part of that, email me and I'll tell you how to, if you don't still have it in your email in the e-newsletter. If you want more information about the certification process, then email me or to the contact page on our website. You can email me through that. And it said at the very beginning, my email address is janice@janicebanther.com. You can also email me. It's very easy. Another one is janice@birthbehindbars.com. Either one of those will get to me. Grants. Janice, how do you pay for this? There are organizations in the country where it's all volunteer. And that's wonderful. I am a 501c3. I have, so I have people who are individuals, businesses, organizations. I've had churches support me through the years, of all the years I've been doing this. Even before I started Birth Behind Bars, when I was for Love of Birth, for the last 21 years, they've been supporting that. So you're thinking, and then the only time I've had actual grants actually for Birth Behind Bars has been in the last couple of years. So all the rest of those years has been me working on getting the money. So how am I supposed to get the money? I'm not non-for-profit. You don't have to be non-for-profit. Some grants, you don't have to be. Other grants, and most grants do, or if you're talking to an organization, I've talked to every club there is to talk to, Rotary, Women in Networking, the Lions Club, you name a club, the Garden Club, you name a club, I've talked to them and told them that they could give donations. You can even also donate on our website if they wanted to. So if you're not-for-profit, what you can do is partner with a non-for-profit organization. Most pregnancy centers are non-for-profit. In fact, I think all of them are. Most birth networks, we have a fantastic birth network here in our area, the Tampa Bay Birth Network, and they're non-for-profit. You could contact them and see if you could partner with them as far as applying for a grant. So you could do it that way. And we will cover this in the classes that we're going to be talking in the certification process. Trying to think and see if I have forgotten anything I want to tell you. I want to tell you this one story. Maybe two, but definitely one. We had this girl that was pregnant, and she got to the jail probably when she was about 5 months pregnant. And she was hooked on drugs, and so she needed to be, in the medical area because she was on the methadone program. So after we finished teaching a program, we would go down and talk to the people in medical. A lot of times she refused to talk to us. She didn't want to see us. Okay. Times that she did, it was very short. I mean, like less than a minute. And she was done and didn't want to talk to us. Okay. It doesn't matter if they've seen us or not. When a pregnant inmate gets sent to the hospital, the medical calls us and says, inmate so-and-so has been sent to the hospital. It's time for you to go. So she had refused all of her prenatal visits, every single one of them. She made all of her meth visits. You have to go and get checked every week. And she made all those. She made sure she got her meth. Never checked on her baby. So she's now 40 weeks, almost 41. And we were surprised she made it that long because usually when they are on methadone program, they have a preterm baby. So they actually tricked her somehow of getting into the van. I think she thought she was going to court. And she was taken to the hospital. And they contacted me and they said, we're taking her to the hospital now. I said, okay, well, you'll probably get a call from us in a couple of hours to let you know that they're going to probably keep her. I'm sure they're going to keep her. I said, okay, just let me know. So I pretty much, it was nice when you can plan out your day ahead of time when you're a doula. So I got to plan on a couple of hours ahead of time. So I got a phone call and they said they've been running some tests and the tests aren't very good. It looks like best case scenario that when the baby is born, it's going to have very much difficulty breathing, barely alive, and will flight the baby out to a hospital, an all-children's hospital or a level 3 nursery hospital. And the hospital where we give birth at for our inmates is a level 1. So, and they said, but what we think will probably happen as soon as the baby reaches oxygen outside utero, it'll die. So my whole way I'm driving there, I'm furious at the inmate. How could she do this? I was mad at her. And I'm also planning a funeral. I'm thinking about how to plan a funeral. Okay, I can contact this funeral home. I'm pretty sure they'll do this free for her. I can contact the chaplain at the jail. He'd do the service for her. I can contact, the cemetery. They have an angel section where they can bury a baby. I was doing all this in my head and making sure I had this information straight in my head so that way when this happened, I would have the information to give her. So I walk in the room, and I was determined not to like this girl. I'd seen her before, but I was determined I wasn't going to like her. I walked in, the room was crammed with people because there was such a high risk going on here, what they're going to do with this baby. And I walked in, I took one look at her, and my heart melted. And hers didn't, but my heart melted. And I went over to her, and after I talked to the deputy, and let them see my birth bag and go through it, everything. And I went over to her and I patted her on the back. I could tell she wasn't a hugger. And I patted her on the back and I said, how you doing? Okay. I'm all right. And so the decision was made to do a cesarean because they did not believe the baby could make it through a vaginal birth. The testing was so bad that was done. So you know how it is if any of you doulas have been in OR for a C-section. It's very noisy in there. And they do that a lot of times just to make it noisy and to help the mother because they know she's nervous and scared having a C-section. And so there's a lot of talk going on. And the anesthesiologist is talking to the mother and the doctor goes back and forth and talks. It's just a lot of talking. There was nothing. You could hear a pin drop in this OR. And I'm by her head, and I'm rubbing her face like this, and I'm talking to her, and I said, the noise you're hearing, and I was describing the noise that she's hearing and what it was, and there was no noise. Everybody had masks on, of course. You can only see their eyes, and you're communicating with the mom through your eyes because she can't see your whole face. And it was amazing. As soon as that doctor, it was a female doctor, she pulled the baby out, and I could see above the screen, the sterile screen. Isn't that hilarious? The sterile screen. We're all in here, but that one little area is sterile. The baby was up high enough. The hands were up for the baby. I saw the baby's hands do this, so I knew the reflexes as far as the muscle tone was good. And it screamed to the top of his lungs. It was amazing, and you could literally hear like a in the whole room. People were just completely amazed, totally amazed. I was one of them, and she said, what's going on? I said, well, your baby is crying really, really good. Well, what's happening? What's happening? And the specialists that were behind me, I heard one say, well, I'm not needed. Well, I'm not needed. Well, I'm not needed. And they were walking out of the room. And she said, is he okay? Is he okay? And I was looking over at the baby warmer, and I couldn't see the baby because the pediatrician was in the way. I looked down at the mother, and she had a tear coming down to her eye. And it was coming down this way because she was laying down. And I thought, she's finally going to care for her baby. She's going to finally care. And I said, I don't know, but I'm figuring because people are leaving the room and she's still watching the baby right here that this is a good thing, but she'll tell you real soon about the baby. I'm worried about my baby. I am worried about my baby. And I know you are. I know, but this is a good sign so far. It's a good sign. And I'm doing this, and that I wipe her tear away. That was about 30 seconds, maybe 45. And all of a sudden, I look down and she goes, where's my meth? Is my meth here? I want my meth here at the hospital. I don't want to go cold turkey here at the hospital. I want to go cold turkey at the jail. They better have my meth here. Where's my meth? I want my meth. Do you know where my meth is? Literally talking that fast. And I said, no, I don't know where your meth is. When we get out of surgery, I'll ask the deputy, and I'm sure she knows where your meth is. And this was a very mean girl. And I don't mean that she was mean. I have no idea what her charges were. But she looked very, very mean and hard, very hard looking, and refused to hold her baby. So for the whole time she was there, doulas took shifts in us holding the baby, so that baby had human contact with a female during the time that her baby was there. And at the same time, want to hold your baby now for a while? Want to hold your baby now for a while? We'll take some pictures of you holding your baby. And she would every once in a while, I'm done. And she had a miraculous change once she got back to jail. And she walked by, I was in the classroom, and half the wall is glass. And I was setting up for class, and there was, it must have been a parenting class. I can't remember now. Or maybe we were training somebody, because there was more than one of us there. There was 3 of us there. So we were probably training somebody new in Birth Behind Bars. And this girl comes up to the window, and she looks at me, and she's waving really big to the glass, and I'm waving really big back at her, and I'm talking like this. I said, does anybody know who she is? I had no clue who she was. She just gave birth the week before. I had no clue who she was. I did not recognize her at all. Well, she came in the classroom. First time she ever came to the class. Now she's in population. She's gone cold turkey, and she's in population. And I said, I realized that's the girl that just gave birth. And I guess everything we said didn't just go in one ear and out the other. Because once she got to jail, instead of having postpartum depression, she made a huge change in her life. Huge change. So much so, I didn't even recognize her. She smiled. She looked happy. She was happy to talk about her baby. She thanked us for the pictures that we sent her of her baby. She was nice. It was unbelievable. You have no idea the difference you're going to make in that girl's life. You have no idea the difference you're going to make in that child's life years from now because of how you've taught that mother to bond with that baby in utero, as it talks to us in so many journals that we're reading right now and the books that are coming out now about the bonding with the baby in utero. I hope that this is something that obviously you're watching that you want to be involved in. And I'm hoping that I will be receiving an email from you or else on the Birth Behind Bars Facebook page that you want to be part of the professional page and that you want to learn this too. I am so glad I had this time with you. I'm so glad we got to talk. You may have watched this in sections. I know it's an awful long time to sit and listen and look at somebody on YouTube for almost an hour. But thank you. And if you have any questions, please contact us. Again, my name is Janice Banther. My email address is janice@janicebanther.com. You can find us on Facebook, is where you found us before. And you can find my Facebook page there. You can find also our websites and become more involved, and we will help you as much as we can every step of the way, no matter where you are in this country. And we've also received requests outside this country. We will help you as you learn to help the pregnant inmates in your area. Thank you. Thank you for your caring heart, your caring mind, and wanting to help this very small group of women who desperately needs love, and this baby needs to be loved. Thank you very much. Goodbye.